Hey, folks, welcome once again to another BritTrack virtual panel. Tonight, we're talking about Classic Who at Big Finish. For those of you who don't know, Big Finish is an audio production company based in England that does original, new classic Doctor Who audio adventures with the original cast when they're available, and they do new stories, new companions, and it's absolutely amazing. Tonight, like I said, we're going to focus on Classic Who because most of the new items that are coming out for Classic Who are coming out through Big Finish. So tonight I have a couple of great guys with me. I have Mr. Andy Teal with Pride on Academy. Hey, Andy. And
hello,
I have
hello.
Mr. Brian Doob down here at the bottom with the British Invaders podcast.
Hello from Canada.
Hey. All right. So Big Finish has been around for over 20 years now, and they are one of the leaders in producing new Classic Who stuff. Just real quick, Andy, what is your favorite Big Finish Classic Who range?
Ooh. I honestly, the original monthly Doctors, sort of the classic, the monthly releases that they started out with, like the Sirens of Time going forward to recently when they stopped. Does that count as a range?
That counts as a range, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
There are only 275 of them, so it's easy to catch up, right?
Yeah.
It's too easy. It's like someone asks who your favorite Muppet is and you say Kermit. It's just too easy. Yeah.
Well, see, mine's Fozzie, but we're already getting off track.
Sorry.
So,
I do that.
Brian, I did. Brian, what is your favorite range?
I'm a big fan of the box set, so I'm going to pick a box set rather than a range and say the Sixth Doctor: The Last Adventure.
Oh, that was a good one. Yes, where Colin Baker finally gets his regeneration episode. Yeah, so good.
I've actually not listened to it yet. I've been looking forward to it.
I recommend it, Andy. It is really good. And just for a completionist's sake, Brian, what's your favorite Muppet?
Today I'll say Gonzo.
There you go.
Awesome. You got to eliminate Kermit to choose anyone else after Kermit. Then you can really. It's not fair.
So what we're gonna do is we'll talk about some of the new ranges that have come out recently. For those of you who don't know, oh wait a minute, I suppose I should talk about my favorite range for Classic Who. Yes, and I'm going to say it's going to be the later Eighth Doctor series, with starting with Dark Eyes, and then it goes to Doom Patrol. I love
Doom
those.
Coalition.
Yeah, Doom Coalition. Sorry.
I was going to say that's coincidence.
Yes, I love one that Paul McGann has had a chance to just completely form his Doctor in Big Finish. And they've given him a great venue, some great companions, and it's just absolutely an amazing range.
So, there is some superb stuff in there for sure.
Yes. There's even a classic two-parter Christmas episode. And is it Doom Coalition or is it Ravenous?
Oh,
the one with the Krampus.
I don't remember which one it is, but yeah, I think it was a John Dorney script. Yeah, well, yes. It was good for sure.
We're being horrible experts here, but it's in one of the Eighth Doctor box sets. It's later.
There are a lot of them.
There are.
To be fair.
Yes. So let's just start off with talking about some of the newer sets. And I know, Andy, you may or may not know about this, but we'll start to talk about the new Second Doctor adventures.
I do.
The Beyond the War Games. So it's the season 6B that was totally rumored, and it's finally come to pass. So,
I can't believe the canonized season 6B. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I know.
Well, the interesting thing, fans have been talking about 6B forever. This was the idea that after the Second Doctor's last story, he actually continued to travel working for the Time Lord Celestial Intervention Agency for a while before regenerating, and that solves a couple of continuity issues in the 5 Doctors and the 2 Doctors. And Big Finish has jumped headlong into that with so far one box set with Michael Troughton, one of Patrick Troughton's sons, playing the second Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses that season 6B idea, but because they have actual writers doing something with this rather than just fans throwing around an idea, it's a more interesting take on 6B with more things going on in it than what you would think of by default when you read about the 6B idea. And of course, they throw in the Brigadier with John Culshaw doing an amazing take on the late Nicholas Courtney's role, and they do a lot with that. So it's really an interesting thing they're going into there with lots of things that are still open. We've only heard the first box set from that so far.
Brian, that's a good point, and I'm glad you brought it up. Talking about the recasting of our classic actors who have unfortunately passed away, with John Culshaw playing several characters. He plays the Brigadier. He's done the Delgado Master, and he's done the Anthony Ainley Master. Just among of the many roles that he's done. And of course, Sadie Miller coming back to play Sarah Jane Smith, and Carolyn John's daughter. I cannot remember her name.
Daphne Ashbrook.
Daphne Ashbrook? No, she played
Daphne Ashbrook was
Grace
from the TV movie.
Oh, no, sorry. Okay, I've lost it.
It's okay.
So, but what her name is, playing Liz
Daisy
Shaw.
Ashford, that was it.
Daisy Ashford, there you go.
That makes sense.
Very close, very close. So, and I'd like to get your opinion, Andy. What do you think about that, of casting the original characters again?
Well, back when Big Finish started, I remember there was a big controversy about it. Well, not a controversy, but people were really torn on it because they couldn't get Tom Baker, and everyone was like, well, just cast somebody. And I was never 100% in the don't do it camp. A lot of people were like, no, it's disrespectful to actors and it interferes with the purity of the show. I was always kind of like, yeah, I hope they do someday. So I'm thrilled. I think it's going very well. Maybe one too many First Doctors. That's just... One is fine. We're up to like 19 First Doctors. But no, I think it's great. I am always surprised by how well John Culshaw does. Like, you'd think... there's always a little bit, like, yes, you can tell it's John Culshaw, just a tiny bit. But he's... Like, to be able to do Ainley and Delgado and have them have a conversation, that's something.
And how he did... He also did Chameleon. He did a really
I haven't heard
job
that one.
Oh, yes, there was a Fifth Doctor a trilogy where he played Chameleon. It's in the last couple of years.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I think I own it, but I haven't heard it yet.
There you go.
Yes, his Brigadier is I think his most remarkable one. Even doing the Brigadier at several different ages, and differentiating that. But one of the interesting things that they've done, where Culshaw is sort of known as an impressionist, and he's a very good one. For a number of the recastings, they've focused more on performance than voice.
Yeah.
And they've done things for example, with Stephen Noonan doing the First Doctor. He did an enormous amount of research into Hartnell's performance. And he sometimes vocally sounds a lot like the First Doctor and sometimes a little less. He gets a lot of notes of the performance in there.
Is he the new First Doctor, the one they just cast a few months ago?
Yes, he's the new First Doctor for the new First Doctor range.
Yeah.
And in terms of getting that stylistic performance there, he's done some remarkable things with it. He went back and re-recorded large chunks of Hartnell's dialogue from the classic series just as an exercise to get the performance right.
That's fantastic.
And it shows, he
dedication.
really went into that. And he's a good actor, Noonan. He's someone who's been in the Royal Shakespeare Company, for example.
Mhm.
And
I was surprised by how well William Russell did it.
yeah.
I mean, like, I never would have compared their voices, but he convinced me. That I heard some of Stephen Noonan. I haven't heard one of his full stories yet, but I as soon as I heard he was cast, I listened to what I got. I thought he was great.
Yeah, he's done some really interesting work with that. And when you get into full stories, he's really gone into the nuts and bolts for the performance there, which is interesting. And that's how they've been leaning on things with some of the more recent recastings.
Mhm.
I think similarly with Michael Troughton for the second Doctor, while yes, he sounds like him, and it's his son, so he's going to sound like him at least somewhat. But he's gone a lot into sort of performance details there as well, and it shows. And I think those are interesting. They give you a really interesting way of hearing this character in a way that is authentic in a slightly different way than what we get with a more voice impression focused approach.
Mhm.
But
So I've been enjoying some of the newer things they've been doing with that quite a bit.
Well,
It's
like,
interesting to see that
go ahead.
because I think of the new castings as more of a voice impression approach because they're closer to the voices than the previous cast. Like David Bradley couldn't sound less like William Hartnell, and Fraser Hines was a convincing second Doctor. But I thought of them going to these new guys as a move toward sort of vocal verisimilitude. So that's sort of both, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, another good example is Tim Treloar taking on the role of the third Doctor.
I really like him.
Yes, I think he's gotten better as
Yes,
you
no,
would.
I agree. He has.
Yes. The first set, I'm not a big fan of the enhanced audiobook format. So or where they give exposition, I guess, like a voiceover talking about what they're doing. I'm not a fan.
They're narrated.
Yeah. But starting with his second set on, they're just crackers every single time.
Yeah, there was this idea in the past that if you had an actor narrating and doing the Doctor, then it was less like a replacement because it was sort of part of the narration almost. And that was sort of a bit of their get out of jail free card there. And they've gradually moved away from that as people have heard some of these actors and decided that yes, this is how we want to hear things. There was a particular scene when they did the Doctor of War series. So this was an Unbound with a sort of what if story with Colin Baker as a different version of the War Doctor. So this is going pretty deep into to different approaches. But they had a scene with the fourth Doctor and Sarah Jane Smith doing their scene from Genesis of the Daleks, but with a different ending. And it's, Tom Baker at age 80 something doing a Tom Baker dialogue from when he was 40. And then for Sarah Jane Smith, she's doing her mother's dialogue.
And it was creepily good. When I listened to that,
it was hard to tell that you were hearing, a different actor and an actor who was much older when they're
Yeah.
still doing the same dialogue. It was very close. It was really
Mhm.
striking.
So let me ask you this, and I'll get your opinions on this in a second. How do you feel about recasting characters who have not passed on? For instance, the new First Doctor Adventures with Bradley, God, I
David
forget his name.
Bradley.
David
Yeah.
Bradley. They recast both all Barbara, Ian, and Susan, even though some of those actors were still available. So, what do you
Yeah.
think of that? And well, again, we'll start with Andy on that.
Oh, yeah. Conceptually, I don't have a problem with it. I mean, obviously, I don't like it, but if the actor's fine with it, then I have no issue with it. That specific group of casting made no sense to me, because I'm sure everybody has thought about this. It's just the people who look like them. They were cast because they looked like them, and now they're supposed to sound like them. They don't, especially. I really didn't understand that as anything but a TV tie-in. Not that I have any problem with TV tie-ins. I love TV tie-ins, but it just made no sense to me.
I mean, Big Finish is pretty much an entire
Yeah.
TV tie-in.
Yeah. Well, you know what? When I say TV tie-in,
I know what you mean, though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I realized after I said it that it's. I don't know how else to describe it. It's like one of those.
Yeah.
Like a Happy Meal toy that comes out with the movie. It's like, here's your movie actors.
It's a case by case thing for me, and I thought that one was okay once they were in those roles for An Adventure in Space and Time, the Doctor drama. It showed us sort of a different take on things, so they rolled with it from that. And I thought those were pretty good. I'm glad that we have something else for the First Doctor now as well, with the Stephen Noonan ones. But yeah, I think it's case by case, and I think most of the ones that they've done have been okay and have sort of done something interesting.
Yeah.
And this is a lot of I think how Big Finish approaches things is not filling in gaps because they're there or possibilities because they're there, but what can we do that's interesting? Where can we find some interesting story and some interesting drama in this? And they found things in those spaces.
Yeah.
Let's move on from the Beyond War games to another range that Brian just thoughtfully brought up, and that is the Unbound range, which is a very good set of audios. Andy, would you kind of explain what those are for our viewing audience?
The Unbound range were sort of alternate universe takes on that. I mean, literally alternate universe takes on the Doctor, just as a way to have sort of venerable English actors who never played the role step in, like David Warner and oh gosh, his name just fell out of my brain.
So Derek Jacobi?
No, but yes, it doesn't matter. Several sort of names who many times people have thought, oh gosh, you'd make a great Doctor, and for the most part, I think they did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was interesting. Were you thinking of Jeffrey Belden by any chance?
Yes.
Yeah, who had a take on the first Doctor in those.
I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was influenced by the Marvel What If comics, and the idea was to make a deliberate change where it would be different continuity. Mm-hmm. So what if the Doctor never left Gallifrey? And do something with that, and they did something with that.
What if the third Doctor appeared on Earth in the 90s instead of the 70s?
And all of those things, and all of the aliens that attacked in the 70s, the Brigadier had to deal with them on his own. And that was the David Warner one. And then with David Collins, they played with the morals and the ethics of the Doctor in sort of a very, very interesting and sort of complicated way. So yeah,
that was the full Fathom 5 episode.
Yes,
right?
It was.
Yes. Oh, that was so good.
And those were done before the new series of Doctor Who started.
Yeah.
So the original group of them were. So they were very much in the time where there was not a lot happening in Doctor Who in the same way that there would be later. And the groups like Big Finish and the comic books and so on had a little bit more free reign to do some interesting and out there things. And it stands up as a great reign still today. Most of the ones that were released were from about 2003, and they're still very good.
And some of them are still recent. David Warner, who portrayed the alternate Third Doctor, actually has just recently come into the main universe through his adventures with Bertie Summerfield.
That's right.
The original Big Finish character. I mean, I say original as in her audios were first, not in they created it. Right. But and of course, David Warner, we just lost him recently, which is very sad. But he did do an awful lot for Big Finish as the alternate Third Doctor, and
several different roles actually.
Yes, because he was in some of the Fourth Doctor audios as a bad guy,
as Cuthbert. Yes, with Toby Haydock as his sidekick. It was those were something,
including the only season of Tom and Mary Tam. Yes. So it's fortunate she was able to do some before.
And
she passed.
And we talked about having different actors taking over for people who passed away. It's worth noting that Big Finish recorded performances and released things with a lot of actors who have since passed away. And because of Big Finish's work, we have Liz Sladen doing a Sarah Jane Smith spin-off on audio.
It's a great series, and it's finally fully available for purchase on Big Finish
on download.
Yes,
and we have Mary Tam doing a full season of post Key Time audio
adventures
with Tom Baker.
Well, and in the Gallifrey series,
she appears in the Gallifrey series as well.
Such a wonderful dive into continuity. Just every character who's ever been on Gallifrey, I loved it.
By the way, I know I haven't mentioned this yet, but Lalla Ward is a goddess, and she is, I think, wonderful in Gallifrey. And she just, her character once again, Big Finish has given her character a chance to breathe and become separate from the Doctor, even though she kind of dives back into the Doctor's life in his later generations. But the whole Gallifrey series with Romana and Leela and two K9s.
Leela.
It's so good. Yes.
They started out with the West Wing in space idea, it's very political. And they've moved to slightly less political stuff and back to more political stuff over time, as they've done a lot with Gallifrey now. But
wait, is Gallifrey still going on? I didn't know that.
Yes, it is. There's as we record, there's a new box set about to come out.
Oh my
God.
They've
quote unquote ended it a number of times, but there's always a new take on it.
That's fantastic.
And they've pulled in sort of new series aspects as well with the Time War. So also aspects of the New Adventures novels, with Ace becoming involved in Gallifrey at one point as well.
That's fantastic.
So they've done a lot with it. They really have. And every time they do something else with it, there's always interesting stuff there. And they're even in the more recent years, they've introduced new spin-offs based on classic Doctor Who, because we have things like the Robots, which goes full bore
back
into
to
the robots
Caldor.
of death
Yeah.
territory,
Yes.
back to Caldor, with one of the Eighth
It's
Doctor companions, Livchenka,
Livchenka. Yes.
involved,
And
and
there's like six box sets of that.
yeah, the last one
Yeah.
hasn't come out yet as we record, but yes, and they had Pamela Salem and the late David Collins back for it as well. From the original, reprising their original characters from the Robots of Death. So that's things that are still going on now with elements drawn from a single story from the middle of the 1970s. So, and
Yeah.
you don't even have to really know that story from the 70s because they're doing new interesting things with that. And with a lot of these, if you don't know the original eras they're basing it on that much or at all, it still works well. They still stand up really well, I think.
Andy,
I
what
love
were you
that.
about to say?
Well, I just love that they were willing to create Jago and Lightfoot.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
that's
Again, another whole series based on one episode.
Yeah. And not
Yeah.
even the primary cast. It's just these
Yeah.
two lovable characters. And the fact that Big Finish was like, yes, let's do that. I love them for that forever.
And they ran for, I think, 10 seasons or 11 seasons with the two actors, something like that.
More than that, I think they were working on series 14.
Yes, and that was the one they did.
The actor who played Lightfoot passed away.
That's right. Trevor
Baxendale. Baxter. Yeah.
Baxter.
Yes, but yeah, they did a ton of them, and they just went from adventure to adventure to adventure. They would do travel in time. The Doctor came back in sometimes. There was a series with the Master in it. So yes, then they had
them showing up in other Doctor Who episodes as well.
Yes, they had new adventures with the Fourth Doctor and Leela. They had adventures with both Romanas at one time or another. They had adventures with the Sixth Doctor, where they actually became full-fledged companions
for a little while.
And
that's
traveled
right.
for a couple of episodes.
I gotta go through my checklist. I have missed a lot.
And that happens between series 4 and 5 of Jago and Lightfoot, and actually sets up what happens in series 5. No spoilers, but it is amazing. The what happens to them. It's just absolutely bonkers.
Something else that we've sort of alluded to, I guess, is the big reorganization that happened this year, where they sort of replacing what used to be the monthly range that had different doctors showing up in different months and this sort of thing. They now have a separate range for each doctor. Most of many of those ranges just started this year. So we have a new 6th Doctor adventures and 7th Doctor adventures and 1st and 2nd and so on.
And 8th Doctor adventures coming out later on this year.
That's right. It'll be a new take on that too.
It's post Stranded, which was the last box set that they did. It has Livchenka, played by the amazing Nicola Bryant, by the way.
Nicola Walker, yeah.
Nicola Walker. Sorry, Nicola Bryant was Perry. I'm so sorry. Yes, Nicola Walker. Sorry about that. Oh my goodness, the other lady. I can't even remember that companion's name. So the 8th Doctor.
The companion is Helen.
Helen, yes.
Helen Sinclair.
Yes. They're.
Hattie Morahan was the actor.
I just can't remember because my brain is turned to mush and it's leaking out. If I didn't have these headphones on, it would be grody. So
the background looks a little like you've got Princess Leia hair.
You know what? Yes, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, help me, but that's the wrong track.
Yes.
So, but it was filmed in London, so there you go.
True.
But yes, I love the. I did not think I was going to like the reorganization. I thought, what, you're taking away my monthly Doctor Who's? What the heck? But I really do like it because I like what they're doing with the new stories.
Yeah.
And I think that is the most important part, is that they continue with the stories.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
yes.
and with each one of those ranges, they decided to do something interesting with it that would be a new take on things.
Mhm.
And those have been really interesting.
Mhm.
I've particularly been enjoying the two box sets we had recently with the Sixth Doctor and Mel and a new companion.
I have not
Um,
heard those yet. I know
No,
about
yeah.
them, but I have not heard those.
yes, this is the uh, well known for being the first wheelchair using companion, but they've it's more interesting than that. It's Ruth Madeley from Years and Years took the role,
Okay.
and uh, she's the character is also a marine biologist. So the first box set was all sort of things related to water and marine life and things,
I was
and
so
they've
confused. I was
done some
racking my
really
brain for
interesting
a
stuff
companion
with
in the
it.
classic series. I was like, I don't remember someone in a wheelchair from the classic series. Who am
Yeah,
I forgetting?
no,
No,
this
no.
is
I
a
get you
new
now.
companion. Yes,
Yep. Sorry.
um, and it's also, I think it's the first time that they added a new companion with Mel and the Sixth Doctor.
Yes, because the Sixth Doctor has had new companions before. He had uh
Or no, that was Fifth.
that's Fifth Doctor.
Evelyn.
He had
Evelyn was the big one.
uh
Yeah,
yes, Evelyn, and oh
Charlie
my
Pollard
goodness.
traveled with him for a while too.
Yes, for a little while. But the more recent ones, the World War II
Yes,
lady,
Constance is
Constance Clark.
wonderful. Constance
Yes,
Clark,
and then
and there was also Flip Jackson,
Flip. I
Philippa
kept thinking
Jackson.
Pip. Yes, I love the combo when he starts traveling with both of them. Actually, I think
Yes,
that's brilliant too.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yes,
Constance Clark is one of my favorite companions now after those. But you
yes,
know, this new companion, Hebe in the wheelchair, she's also something, a really different character than we've had before,
yeah.
and she's really good. So I'm really
Cool.
enjoying those too.
So other
Neat.
new companions that you will find for classic Doctors, we have Hex, who traveled with the Ace since it's the Seventh Doctor for a while. We have, of course, Aramem, who traveled with the Fifth Doctor for a little while. Charlie Pollard, who, a little bit of a spoiler, traveled with two doctors, both the Eighth Doctor and the Sixth Doctor. And if you want to find out what happened there, you're just going to have to go find the episodes. Fortunately, most of those stories are available at a very, very
Yeah,
severe discount at the moment because they're older stories, but they're well worth getting, with the possible exception of one of a couple of the early Eighth Doctor and Charlie stories, but we won't go into that. But
They're
yes,
still finding their feet.
they were still finding their feet. Yes,
yeah,
to be perfectly fair. So great, and the Fourth Doctor is has a new companion just recently in his most recent set. Although she hasn't become a full companion full time yet.
that's
She's an
right.
artist.
Yeah,
I can't remember the character's name, but she was just introduced,
Mhm.
and I'm looking forward to that. She's an older character, so we're going to again get that dichotomy
yeah,
of the Doctor appearing younger, but still is much older than his older companion. So yes. I have another question because one of the things that we have going on in Big Finish are lost episodes.
yeah.
So episodes
Yeah.
where they for one reason or another the script didn't get made, or it's a different version of the script. So my question is, how do you feel about them doing these lost episodes? And again, we'll start with Andy.
No, start with Brian. I talk too much as it is. There's an audio delay, so I keep interrupting, and I feel terrible about it. Brian, you talk.
I am glad that they do them. I think there have been some really good ones. I think on the whole, I prefer the original Big Finish stories to the adaptations of these lost stories that were never made. But I'm really glad we have those lost stories too, and some of them have been very good, and some of them are sort of fascinating to see how things changed. They did uh, an earlier script version of Revenge of the Cybermen. That this was the Jerry Davis script, I believe. So it was a Fourth Doctor story written as if it were a 1960s Cyberman story.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see what it was like. I think for the most part, a lot of the changes they made for the television version were probably actually a good idea. But it was still really cool to hear the that earlier take on it.
Yeah. And that's the problem with making scripts that were rejected and ultimately worked, is they were rejected a lot of the time for good reasons. But
yeah, in some cases they were, and in some cases there's something that is really worthwhile there. And I think they've all been worth listening to, and some of them have been excellent, and some of them are good. But I prefer the original Big Finish stories in a lot of those cases.
I think in my opinion, the best set of lost stories is going to be the abandoned season 27 scripts with Seventh Doctor Ace and his new companion Rain. I think that was really good.
I thought you were going to say something else there. Yeah, no, I agree. I was happiest with that they made the missing Sixth Doctor season, the one that should have been.
Oh, yes.
What is it? I can't think of the number.
Season 23.
That made me really happy. I had, not long before they announced it, I had finished hunting down all the Target novelizations, which aren't good. The script had never gone through revisions or editing, and then they just adapted them directly into novel form, and I couldn't even finish them. So when they announced them, I'm like, ooh. So I was thrilled with those.
And they gave us David Bailey as the Celestial Toymaker and characters like that too.
Yeah.
So it was lovely to hear how some of those earlier characters would have been reintegrated in the 80s.
Yeah.
So there was some those two seasons, the alternate season 23 and the would-be season 27, are highlights there for sure. Where some of the others were sort of little bits and pieces that would have fit in different places. They did one with the first Doctor, with I had the title and I just lost it.
Do your own research, folks.
Yeah,
Stop depending on
there
us.
You go. The original First Doctor box set, the Farewell Great Macedon, that was the one.
Oh, right.
That used some that sort of partly narrated approach, but did some really interesting stuff with it. So that they've done some interesting things there.
Yeah.
And this is, again, part of why I like the Big Finish stuff so much, is that when they choose to do something, they make decisions for dramatic and artistic reasons, and they're doing it for the fans. They're not sort of mass market decisions or, because we have to decisions. They're always doing something interesting with it. And because of that, a lot of the time when I hear the the plan and then I hear the actual story, it's much more interesting than I was expecting it to be.
One of the cool things, and I'm sorry, Andy, I'll
That's okay.
throw myself in there for a second. One of the cool things that I think they're doing with Big Finish, they've had a couple of multi-Doctor episodes, stories. The first one with the first Doctor and the second Doctor, that was really good. That had actually Katarina in it. It was brilliant. Oh my goodness.
That was something special. Yeah.
Yes. And part of the story where you kind of get the second Doctor's take on what the first Doctor's going through. Just absolutely just heartbreaking. And then more recently, we had a second Doctor or a third Doctor and second Doctor story. It's a 7-part story called The Annihilators. And it was really good. And it actually introduced Michael Troughton's version of the second Doctor. And it was
an interesting way of doing it to introduce this new take on the Doctor where he's the backup Doctor, not the main Doctor in the story.
Along the same lines as the adaptation of unproduced episodes, I really enjoy the occasional adaptation of the novels, of the various Cold Fusion. Yes, I love those. I do love the original Big Finish stories, but these sort of radically different takes on things, of course, that I'm just happy I read in the 90s. Cold Fusion was already one of my favorite novels from the range, and I wish they would do more of those.
Andy, explain what you mean by the novel adaptations, and what novels are we talking about?
In the wilderness years after Doctor Who was canceled and before the TV movie, there were 2 ranges of novels: the New Adventures, featuring the 7th Doctor just picking up where the show left off, and the Missing Adventures, which was sort of, I think of it sort of what Big Finish grew out of. It was every month or so they would release a new novel with a past Doctor and companion that sort of slotted somewhere neatly into continuity. It would say on the cover, "This takes place between this episode and this episode." And
the 7th Doctor was considered the current Doctor.
Yeah,
he was.
Yes.
Yeah, he was the current Doctor for such a wonderfully long time. I think the 8th Doctor finally beat his record at some point. I was so sad.
But I think only by a matter of months, though. It was pretty close.
But those novels really kept us going for a long time, and they were fantastic because they were free to explore stuff they couldn't explore on TV, and they generally didn't push it too far. At least in the Missing Adventures, kind of sort of reined themselves in stylistically to where the show was, whereas the New Adventures did some crazy stuff.
It was a very different take on Doctor Who.
I liked it in the 90s. It was a very 90s take. It was dark. It was edgy. It was in a very specific sort of way.
Extreme.
It was extreme. Yes, it had it. You read it out of a wide-mouthed slam can. Nobody remembers that.
But Big Finish has taken some of those novels and adapted them to audio.
Cold Fusion was the rare multi-Doctor novel with the 7th Doctor and his companions, Chris and Roz, and the 5th Doctor with, I think it was Adric and Nissa and Tegan at the time.
Yeah.
I think it was, and so the audio was wonderfully stuffed full of people.
And it was there's a brilliant scene in both the book and the audio adventure where the 7th Doctor sees Adric.
Yes.
Right, and then you just hear in his voice that he wants to save him, but he can't, especially not the 7th Doctor as Time's champion. There's no way he could do anything for that. But you can just hear in his voice the regret and the sadness.
Well, he is the best Doctor.
He is an amazing Doctor. He's my favorite literature Doctor.
Right.
I love his books the best. My favorite Doctor period is Tom Baker, but he's my favorite literature Doctor. So, but sorry. Go ahead.
Those novel adaptations also gave us a crossover with Sherlock Holmes, which let the Big Finish, Nick Briggs and Richard Earl team, the Big Finish does Sherlock Holmes as well.
Yes.
So they used their Sherlock Holmes team in a Doctor Who drama,
which was brilliant.
that was something special. That was fun.
Oh, I miss the new adventures now. I mean, more
Uh,
than I did.
and I love my favorite literature companion is Benny Summerfield. I love Bernice. I loved
Big
her in
Finish
the
mainstay.
Yes, I loved her in the New Adventures, and like I said, she was their first range, the first thing they ever did.
Yeah.
In fact, they did Benny Summerfield to kind of prove to the BBC that they could do Doctor Who justice. But they have had Benny in some episodes with the Doctor and Ace that were original, but they kind of riff off of the New Adventures novels and kind of where they are in the timeline.
Yeah.
And then she got again an audio herself, a brand new series called the New Series of Bernice Summerfield. And then she started traveling with the alternate third Doctor, played by David Warner.
Yeah,
which was very interesting.
there was a bit of universe bending required to make that work.
A little bit universe destroying, more like it.
Well, that too, yes.
I will never understand why they redesigned her. That is my only gripe. Like, I love Lisa Bowerman in the role, but Benny had a really distinct look in the novels. Like, she was very specifically created to have a specific sort of not even her facial features they could use, but she had a specific hairstyle and earrings and her whole outfit. And as soon as they started using photo covers on the Benny audios, they just took pictures of Lisa Bowerman and didn't change anything. Like, I couldn't. It made it really hard for me to get into it because I'm looking at the picture and I have that visual in my head. I'm like, well, that's not what Benny looks like.
You know what? I haven't even noticed. Isn't
really?
That sad? Yes, but I am glad. Well, we all are, but I am glad that they are doing more of the original Benny Summerfield adventures available for download.
Yes,
which is
Download.
brilliant. Yes, almost my entire Big Finish collection is download. Which, if you're looking for a reasonable way to listen to the stories, download is the thing.
Yeah.
So it's you can get some Doctor Who stories now as cheap as like a couple of bucks for an entire story.
And they do have an app that you can run on a smartphone, and it works very well.
Plus, you can find.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say. Plus, you can find some of the audio adventures on some of these streaming services like Pandora,
Spotify has some,
yes, Audible has some. They're usually earlier stories, but they're well worth listening to, and you can listen to those for free.
I know we're getting toward the end here.
Yes,
I wanted to bring. What are you guys like? What do you want to see Big Finish do? If you have one thing you want Big Finish to do, and yes, I am asking this just as an excuse to tell you what I want Big Finish to do.
Well, do you want to start it off then, Andy?
Yeah, I probably should after that ridiculous introduction. Yeah. I wanted to mention this back when we were talking about recasting characters. I am counting down the days till they finally eventually recast Harry.
They've already done that.
They did recast Harry.
Yeah.
When?
For that Revenge of the Cybermen lost episode, they recast him.
And he's been in several stories.
So I've been counting down the days to something, and I missed it when it happened. So I'm now in negative numbers, I guess. That's disappointing.
You are, yeah.
You know
that
what?
was easy. Because I feel like Harry never got a fair shake.
You're still within the realm of real numbers, though. So that's
good.
Yes.
How is he? What is your opinion on new Harry?
I haven't heard him enough.
Yeah, he hasn't done all that much yet. He's good, but it's a nice interpretation of the character. It's not as reminiscent of the original as some of their others are.
Darn it.
But
he's a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
Ian Marter was a very tough act to follow. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes,
Brian, what about you?
Oh, what do I want to see them do? Other than more of what they've been doing. Mostly more of what they've been doing. I want to see them bring back Davros again. It's been a while.
Oh,
I'd like to see some more stories with different incarnations of the Master with the Doctor. We haven't had
They
those too many of those for a little while. We've had them, but we haven't had too many for a while.
They have a brilliant Big Finish version of the Master played, but what's his name? I can never remember his name. Alex something?
Alex McQueen.
Alex McQueen. Oh my God!
And he hasn't been there for some time now.
Yeah,
I'd love to see him back, hear him back.
But he is absolutely brilliant, and he's mad and insane, and I love him. So
classic villains. I want more more classic villains showing up in the next while. How's that?
So one thing I would love to see is, as much as I love Lalla Ward, but I would love to see future incarnations of Romana. They kind of experimented with that with
Juliet Landau.
Juliet Landau. Yeah, I always remember her from Buffy. They kind of experimented that with Juliet Landau, who I thought was a brilliant choice.
Yeah,
in my opinion. But I would love to see future incarnations of Romana. So
she did a couple of things with them as the third Romana. And it would be nice to see other versions, and it would be nice to see more of that character as well.
Yeah.
Well, so we only.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. It's the audio delay.
We only have a couple of minutes left, so as a tier wrapping up, Andy, where can we find you and your stuff on the interwebs?
Well, me personally, there it is. I'm a freelance artist, mostly a sculptor and illustrator, and my own website is at eldritchstudio.com, which is badly in need of updating, and I should probably update it before this airs. Also,
it's already aired.
It has. Also, I run the Dragon Con Doctor Who group, which is mostly a costuming group, but it's sort of the big Doctor Who gathering place for Dragon Con, Pride on Academy, which is online on Facebook, groups.com, Pride on Academy, and we have a regular forum, prideonacademy.com, even though forums are basically dead now. That's me.
And Brian, where can we find all your British Invaders goodness?
Yes, so British Invaders, we have been running as a podcast for 15 years now, covering all sorts of British science fiction television and related genres. You can find us at britishinvaders.com or wherever you get your podcasts. We're available from just about any podcasting system. And we are on Facebook. You can search for us there. And we are at Brit Invaders Pod on Twitter. So we're in all of those places and in the podcast talking about all sorts of obscure shows and well-known shows too. So lots of things that no one else is really talking about. So it's fun.
Excellent. And now the BritTrack can be found on Facebook. Just look for the BritTrack at Dragon Con. We are also on Twitter at BritTrack. That's BritTrack. And we are also on Instagram at DC BritTrack. You can also find us on our YouTube channel. Again, just look for the BritTrack at Dragon Con. And any place where fine audio and video contents are sold. So please come and join us. I want to thank Andy and Brian for joining me tonight. And thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this very small sample of the classic Doctor Who at Big Finish. Please come back and see us again. And I hope you all have a great night. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Have a great night. Thank you.